Welcome to Diary of a Sheep Dairy Farmer, where we talk all things dairy sheep, from breeding to lambing to milking and everything in between and outside. I'm your host, Becca, owner, operator, and glorified farmhand of Hidden Hollow Sheep Dairy. Welcome back to another day of dairy sheep, guys, and I have a fun one today. I have my first guest on the podcast today. I have Olivia Fox from Crafty Fox Acres, and she is here to tell us about her Micro Dairy and the North American Dairy Sheep Association that she has. She doesn't like to say she started it, but I kind of think she did, but that she is in cahoots with. So just sit back, enjoy, get a cup of coffee, or throw in some earbuds while you're doing your chores and just enjoy this episode. We'll see you at the end. I really do appreciate you being here and talking to me about your micro dairy and the
North American Dairy Sheep Association.
Why don't you just go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Okay. I am Olivia. Most people call me Liv Fox. I am 35 years old. I would be a first generation dairy sheep shepherdess. I did not grow up in agriculture at all, but I have always had a strong desire to be in agriculture, specifically the production animal side of things. And just in a roundabout way was drawn to sheep, and then from there just got pulled into dairy sheep. So I don't necessarily work in the animal industry besides my own farm anymore. I now work in the agronomy side of things, which is kind of interesting. So it's like a tree and plant doctor versus working in the veterinary medicine side of things, which I have done for a little over 11 years right after college.
Okay. And so how exactly did you get into the sheep? Just an out of the blue whim? Because that's how it happened for me.
Yeah, so I got into sheep there. One of my old school, like elementary, high school bus drivers, like my entire childhood, she had sheep, and she was older. Her husband had passed away a while ago. And she just wasn't able to get as much help, and it was getting difficult for her to even use the bander to band tails, or band the rams, that kind of thing. So ultimately, she decided that it was something that she needed to start working her way out of the industry. She had previously had paint horses as well, and she had been out of that for many years prior. And so she posted on Facebook that she was going to be getting out and that she was getting rid of her ewes. She never kept a ram on her farm. She only ever used a ram long enough for breeding. And then she had a deal with another sheep farm in our area. They always would buy the ram from her. So that was a pretty nice deal for her, because then she wouldn't have to deal with housing a ram. So I reached out to her and told her that I had thought about it and I was looking to maybe get a couple ewes, mostly for meat production. And so I went out there and talked to her. I picked out 2 ewes, and told her that I would also like to purchase a ram from her, but I wanted to try to get a ram that was unrelated to those 2 girls. So that way I could have a more diversified flock longer before I needed to start shopping for a ram. So that was fall of 2021. And she agreed that she would hold them for me. So I also made a radical career change. So I had been in veterinary medicine for a little over 11 years and decided to get back into the agronomy field. I was working in Traverse City, Michigan location, but I was commuting from central Michigan. So I had a 2-hour drive one way just to get in my territory. to work with my farmers. And I was looking for a place to buy and found a place, but told her, like there's no infrastructure there for any livestock. Would you be willing to keep these sheep for me until, May? Like in May, I should be able to have enough fence slung up that then I can come down and take them off your hands. And she agreed to that. So got them up here, purchased the farm, got them up here. And when I was talking to her, I told her, I was like, yeah, I want to get a couple of goats too. And she's like, what do you want goats for? I was like, well, I want milk. I want to have milking goats. And she's like, why don't you just get dairy sheep? And I was like, dairy sheep? Like, what the heck are dairy sheep? Completely blew my mind. And so I spent weeks and months like researching what dairy sheep even were, and found the most common breeds, your East Frisian, Awasi, Asaph, Lacoons, and then started looking for said sheep and quickly discovered that they're in America, at least there's not any recognized breed associations for said sheep. There's a lot of what we call quote unquote dairy mutts, and which I had decided, was fine. I didn't care. And meanwhile, I was talking to my significant other and I was like, I have these two meat breed girls, but ultimately that's not really what I want to do anymore. I want to get into dairy sheep. And bless his heart, he is always whatever you want to do. Like, he doesn't care. He supports whatever I decide. So later in the summer of 2022, I just kept searching on Facebook in the different, dairy sheep available in US groups. There was a dairy ram that became available down in Owasso, Michigan, which is about 3 hours south. I don't think I mentioned this. I live in Alden, Michigan, which the closest large city to me is Traverse City, Michigan. So I'm up in the northern lower peninsula of Michigan. And so went down, picked him up, and my neighbor had decided he wanted to get into sheep. So he bought my first ram that I had. So I didn't need to house two. And I had decided, based off from how difficult it was to find dairy ewes in Michigan or even near Michigan, that I was going to just have to start the long drawn out process of breeding up dairy sheep. So used him, and spring of 23 was his first crop of lambs. And I kid you not, we got all rams. Every single lamb from him was a ram. And so that is really difficult when you're trying to do a breed up program, because, ultimately, for the most part, I wanted to retain my ewes. So all those boys ended up in freezer camp, which was fine because we were ultimately also raising lamb for meat too. And I ended up finding a high percentage East Frisian ewe in Northwest Illinois, and contacted the lady, worked out like, yep, she was available, and told Gary. And I told him, I said, I really want this ewe, but it's a drive. And he's like, again, whatever you want, like, let's just jump in the truck and go. So it was about a 14-hour trip one way to go pick her up. And we picked her up, brought her back. And so she is my first, like, true, like, dairy ewe. And bred her, and she lambed last fall. She actually lambed on my birthday, and she gave me a ewe lamb. So that was super exciting. I did milk her a little bit, but I have a 15-month-old daughter who's in daycare because my spouse and I both work full time. And this winter, I don't know if it's a nationwide thing, but we have been sick every other week all winter long. And I think it's due to our beautiful little petri dish that we have. And, no fault of her own, everything goes in her mouth, and, you can't not kiss her. So, I was milking that ewe, and then I got sick long enough, that it was difficult for me to get out there to milk, and I had already weaned her lamb from her, and I tried putting them back together, hoping that she would allow her lamb to start nursing. But they had already been separated for almost a month, and it just didn't work out, and she ended up drying off early. So that was a little disappointing, but no fault of her own, 100% my fault. And I like to call those learning mistakes on my part. I've made a lot of those throughout my life. And so I am currently milking right now. I have several ewes that have lambs. Most of them, they're lambs because I like to lamb share. They're not quite old enough for me to feel comfortable pulling them off of mom. And I also like to milk at night. So I pull them off during the day. I have a 10 by 10 dog kennel I have in the barn, and I put them in there. And then I milk mom at nighttime, and then everybody gets reunited and they spend the evening together. So the two girls that I'm currently milking, because their lambs are old enough, are actually those two meat breed girls, my two OG girls. And I will say I'm rather surprised. The one is a Suffolk Hampshire cross, and she is giving me 6 cups of milk a day, still lamb sharing. Now I realize she's probably not going to maintain that long term. She's probably going to start drying off because her lamb is, well, her Weather actually is club lamb, so he just left last weekend. They're just about 2.5 months old. They were born in January. So I think I'll probably start seeing a drop in production, which is fine because my Dorset ewe that I have, and then I have a Shetland East Friesian ewe, they have all lambs, and about the time I figure that these two girls will dry off, these other two girls will be ready to step up to the plate. So this is my first official season of milking, I would say. And I attempted last year, but I had just had my daughter in December of 22 and was on maternity leave and trying to juggle coming back to work and milking. Also, my first spring of lambing. It was a lot. And it was too much, and I took a step back and I said, I'm not going to try to milk. Like, this is too much. I'm putting too much on my plate. This year has been a lot easier because she's old enough that I just put her in the stroller, and she likes to go. If she sees me putting my overalls on to go to the barn, she wants to go. And if I don't take her, she's most displeased with mom that she is getting left behind. So I'm currently getting about half.
I remember that
Yeah.
time.
So I need to get like a swing or something because we have an old hip roof barn. So with those big beams, something that she can bounce and play in. She's not quite ready to walk. She's teetering on the edge of being ready to walk. She just hasn't taken those first steps on her own yet. Not that I'm complaining. So, but yeah, so we have 10 head of sheep right now. It's I should say 10 ewes, not counting lambs. I try not to do sheep math, especially if Gary's around. I'm like, we don't talk about sheep numbers with Gary around. Because he doesn't know. He just helps whenever I need help.
Yeah.
So, but
I understand that
yeah.
completely.
Yeah. So, and God love him. I always do not necessarily ask permission to do things or purchase a new sheep, but just kind of like run it by him. And he's never told me no. He is totally one of those guys. I probably could haul home like 60 head, and he would just be like, this is so inconvenient, but they're here. We'll just figure it out. He doesn't get worked up about a lot of things, which is great for me.
Good. That's good. That always definitely helps.
Yeah, for sure. And sometimes though, I admittedly I do need somebody to probably tell me no. But so far, it's been okay. We haven't gotten in over our head on anything.
Good, good. So, what are your plans with your dairy sheep? You said you're starting a micro dairy. How are you gonna work all that?
Yeah, so my ultimate goal is to have my side hustle be a micro dairy. So in my head, what that looks like is probably having, I would say, between 50 to 60 head of ewes. And I would try to plan it so about a 50-50 split for a spring and fall lambing. So that way, hopefully, we could pretty much be in milk consistently. And then with the milk that we would get from milking, I would really like to bottle it for locals, to be able to purchase it. There's no dairy sheep creameries up here in northern Michigan. And to be honest with you, I don't even think there is any in Michigan anymore. There used to be one, but I think they left the market in like 2015 or something like that. Um, and then like being able to ultimately, like, I'd like to be able to make cheeses and sell that, and like ice cream or gelato, caramels. Right now what I've been doing is we have been consuming a lot of the milk ourselves. Between my daughter and I, we could easily drink a half gallon a day. We are big time dairy fans in my house. But I do also make sheep milk lotion with it, which is really popular. And I do also want to make some bar soap with it. There is a yarn store about 30 minutes north of us. And I gave them some milk and they made some bar soap and they gifted some to me in exchange, and it's really nice. It's so nice and smooth and silky and doesn't leave your skin feeling dried out afterwards. So I really need to find some time in my busy life to try to make that. Um and I don't know when it'll happen. Might not happen until this next coming winter. I have been freezing some milk for us too, so um that way we have it for a rainy day use as well. So if I can't get to it right away, it's not the end of the world. um Spring and summer are the busiest time for us between our little farm with the sheep. We also have horses. We're pretty active in our local community, does a horse show series, both a pleasure and a speed series. And Gary and I are board members on that and pretty heavily involved with that. So we get really busy with that. And then in agronomy, you're really busy when things are green and growing. And so that's my busiest time of year for work too, is basically now through probably like end of August. It's long days, very rewarding days, but very long, very busy. And so um not a whole lot of time for extra things. And we're also trying to remodel the farm we bought. Is an old farm that was established during the Homesteading Act. So the house was built between 1874 and 1879. And it has been remodeled throughout the years, some of it not correctly. And so we are going room by room, taking it all the way back to the studs and fixing some of the janky things that have been done over the years. And so, doing that too, it's just like, when would you like to make soap? Like, when would you like to sleep? So, but I mean, we make it work. So definitely not complaining. I wouldn't trade this lifestyle for anything.
Yeah, I'm the same. It keeps you busy, but it's hard not to enjoy it.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, I was actually just telling Gary this the other day. I mean, right now I am only milking 2 ewes, but I really look forward to milking. It's very calming going out there. I do have a milk machine. I'm not hand milking anymore. And I mean, that the machine is just like this light purr, and then listening to the girls chew on their grain. And it's just, we have a rhythm, and it's just very methodical, and I do really enjoy going out there. I have always been a person though that just enjoys going out and feeding everyone, like feeding the horses, topping off water tanks. That has been something that has always brought me a lot of joy. I don't necessarily have to ride every day in order to feel content. So that's nice too.
I feel the same way. Just the calm, relaxing, get out of your head and enjoy the animals.
Yes. Yeah. So, and I will
Okay,
say from my experience, the
so
girls respond better to that.
yeah. Yeah, they definitely, the more time you spend with the sheep, the more they just really trust you.
Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about your dairy sheep registration that you're involved in, because that so interests me. I'm part of Dasana. I'm on the Dairy Sheep Association of North America. I'm on the board, and you guys have taken this in a whole different direction than what we're dealing with. Ours is all about the how much milk you can get from your ewes, how to better improve your ewes, and you're have this whole just get sheep milking, and I love that. So can
Mm-hmm.
you tell me a little bit about the dairy association that you have, and you started it, correct?
Yeah. So, I wouldn't claim that I started it. I got the ball rolling. So, going back to, when I was first looking into sheep, dairy sheep specifically, and realizing that there was no registry for the breeds or lineage or anything like that. To me, that's very frustrating, especially because I do come from the horse industry. I'm a member of the American Quarter Horse Association. I was a member of the American Paint Horse Association. So I like to say I know enough to be dangerous about things like that. And I just was blown away that there wasn't anything out there, and had made some posts in different dairy sheep groups on Facebook. And most of the time I would say it was, people were like, yes, we really need this. It's been tried, but it's just petered out. And then some other people were like, well, that's what well, what about, how are you going to be different than DSANA? And do you guys call it Dasana for
Dasana,
the
yes.
okay? I assume so, but
Yeah.
I don't have dyslexia, but sometimes I see words and I just panic and I just make up what I think it is, and it's not
Oh,
remotely
yeah,
close.
me too.
And
Yeah,
so,
me
to
too.
not sound like a fool, I thought I should probably verify that. So I am also a member of Dasana, and I do like what they're doing. I like the symposium. I really think the educational stuff that they offer is fantastic. But just realize that for the for the average person who has no interest in necessarily having a dairy sheep creamery, that they just want to have a few head of dairy sheep for their own personal use, or their family, friends, whatever. That group of people were really struggling, and they didn't feel like necessarily Dasana could offer what they were looking for per se. So I made some posts, and there were like 7 people right off the bat that were like, yeah, I'd be interested in helping you start this and get the ball rolling. So we started chatting via Facebook, and like what we were looking for, what our goals and objectives were, and decided, yep, like we really should get the ball rolling on this. And so thus we decided to call ourselves the North America Dairy Sheep Association, only because we thought it would be similar to like the American Dairy Goat Association, where they allow I believe they allow Canadian and Mexico members as well, and we wanted to be able to offer that too. So rather than calling it American, we opted for America. And we had this group of people, and I was like, okay, well, if we had decided, we needed to be a nonprofit. Nobody was going to make any money from this organization, and that is still one of our priorities. Is nobody is getting paid to do this. So I was like, okay, well, being involved with our local horse group here, which is also a nonprofit group, I was like, I know we're going to need some bylaws in order to start the process of being a legit entity. So we had many Zoom meetings to go over bylaws and get bylaws established. I bet you, and we were meeting like every 2 weeks. Our first meeting, I think, was like 2.5, 3 hours long. And we were like, okay, like we gotta kind of curb this, because, and we also meet on Sunday evenings. So, right before getting into the work week, you've got moms trying to get kids ready for school the next day. And so we put some limitations. So now our meetings are only allowed to be an hour and a half max. And we finally got through the bylaws, and we're like, okay, we got through the bylaws. We did the paperwork to make sure like we could have our quote unquote business name. And we were like, well, what's next? And we're like, well, we have some people that really want to work towards breeding up a certain breed, and some people who just want dairy sheep. They don't care that they have a little East Frisian, a little Awasi, a little Lacoon. Like, they don't care. Like, they want that more diversified animal. And we're like, okay, well, I mean, dairy mutt name terminology, like, that's really cute and all, but like, do you think maybe we should have like a nicer, a cooler name for them? And so we were talking about that, and somebody suggested, well, it's a pretty diversified genetics. So what about, and they're dairy sheep, what about diversified dairy? And so we were like, yeah, we really like that. So for registration purposes with our group, if somebody is registering, so I guess I should preface this. We will register any sheep that anyone is intending to milk. And I mean, rams, obviously you can't milk rams, but if you're using a ram to breed a ewe for the intention of offspring that are hopefully dairy offspring, we will obviously register the rams too. So any sheep, doesn't matter if it's Katahdin, East Frisian, baby doll sheep, like, if you want to milk it, who are we to stop you, kind of deal. You're the one who decides if it's worth the effort to try to milk whatever sheep you're trying to milk. So we will register anything. If an animal is not already in an association that has a closed herd book, so like your Dorsets, your Finn sheep, if they are not in an association like that, they will get our classification of being called diversified dairy. But on our papers, we will note, if you know what all breeds are in your animal, but say you don't know your percentages, that's fine. Just write down what you know. And we have started notating that on paper. So it'll say East Frisian cross / Lacoon cross, that kind of deal. If you know your percentages, we will also notate that as well. And then if you have a registered animals like your Finn sheep, basically we're like a dual registration. All someone has to do is send us a photocopy of their registration form with that other association. And instead of having the diversified dairy label, they would be registered with the North America Dairy Sheep, but registered as 100% of whatever breed that is. So we have that ability to notate things like that. We strongly encourage members to send pictures of their sheep, because I can include that on the certificate that they get sent back to them. We don't have a website yet. We're hoping to get that in the works. So that way, ultimately, somebody could just go to the website and see the forms and have it be easier. Right now, we are operating off from Facebook and using a Facebook group called the North America Dairy Sheep Association. In parentheses, it says NASDA, as our quote unquote website right now. And we have all the forms that you need to obtain membership and register your sheep are pinned at the top. We have suggested breed standards. We did a lot of research and took what breed standards are from countries that do have purebred East Frisians or Lacoons, and put those in suggested breed standards for those who are trying to work towards a breed up program to give them a goal. And if anyone has like a disagreement on what a suggested breed standard is, we do have a policy, so that way they could file with the board members and the board can discuss it and see like, yeah, maybe we should make this change that somebody is suggesting us, or maybe like, oh, we need to look into this more. We are here to serve the dairy sheep community. And so we're definitely open to suggestions and what people would like. But with that being said, we can't accommodate everyone. Nobody will ever 100% be happy. But we would like the majority to be happy. So I am the current president. And like I said, I'm in Michigan. And then Natasha Lovell is our vice president. She's in South Dakota. Amy Rapun is our treasurer. She's also in Michigan. Bob Engelhart is our secretary. He's in Kentucky. And Tracy Kirkman's in Virginia. Callie Barnaby's in Michigan. And Tina Rockos is in Texas. And there are 3 trustees. So we have made it so we have to have so many board members in order to technically have a board meeting. So that way it's not ever one person that's making decisions. But so we are open for membership. We opened membership up March 18th. We opened up membership. It's $25 to become a member. You have to be a member to register sheep and or transfer a sheep that's already registered with us into your name. And then for the 2024 year only, so through December 31st, it's $7 per sheep. Doesn't matter if it's ram or ewe, to register them. And then next year, we're going to go to what our initial rates were that we discussed. We wanted to make the first year really inviting to try to get as many sheep registered as possible. So that way it's not a limitation for someone to be like, I have 4 sheep, I can't swing $80 to register them with their membership, that kind of thing. So $7 a sheep I feel like is a pretty bargain deal with your membership. When I mail you your welcome letter, there's a discount code in there for Rachel Hester, the guide, or the dairy sheep
To
homesteaders guide to
homestead
dairy
dairy
sheep.
sheep, I think.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
we have
Yeah.
Rachel has been very excited about this association, and so she gave us a code so you can get $10 off that book when you order it from her website. We've been getting a decent amount of members and sheep registering, and just the other night, so I'm the one who inputs all the data right now. Maybe someday we'll be big enough and look into paying someone to do it, but right now I do have enough time to do it. There was someone who sent in their sheep to register, and they had they had a few generations of information, and that was it. Well, some sheep that were in her sheep that were written down in the history, I had already put into the database. So that information automatically got added on to this new person's animals being registered. So that was really cool to see. And in fact, it was so neat to see. I actually went back and dug through
neat.
papers to be like, is this correct? And it was. And I ended up messaging in our Facebook group. So I'm like, you guys, this is so cool. Like, it just gives me faith that once people join and they submit their animals information, that I think we'll be able to recover a lot of information that we have just assumed has been lost. And to me, that's pretty exciting.
Right. No, that's really neat, because then you can kind of keep track of where things are going. So if this sheep is bred by this person and is in your registry, and then it moves to this person who breeds it to this ram that came from this person's genetics, I think that's awesome.
Yeah. I think it'll help people stay diversified. And if somebody, like, for example, I moved to Northern Michigan a few years ago. I don't have any family up here. Most of my family's in Central Michigan. So, if something like this had been around for a while, I could have reached out and been like, hey, who are, your dairy sheep members in the state of Michigan? And then, as an association, we, obviously are recording emails, addresses. We could reach out to those people and say like, hey, we have somebody looking. Are you okay if we give them your contact info? I feel like probably most people are going to be cool with it. And if somebody isn't, that's fine. Ultimately, we hope to have a website and we could just have that listed. But for the meantime, I have no problem having an Excel spreadsheet and, running that information in the background and just manually looking that kind of stuff up for people. I'm happy to do it.
I just think it's so neat. It just gives an extra element to helping people find dairy sheep. We have a membership directory that can tell you where people have sheep, but a lot of times they sell out and they don't let us know. So just having that extra somebody else people can go to find dairy sheep, because it is so hard to find anything anymore.
Yeah. And I know Dasana, like, they have the estimated breeding value things. That's not really something we're looking to get into. So if somebody's looking to get big enough to get to that point, we're happy to send them that way. I know you can't speak for Dasana. In the early stages when we were starting out our association, and we had one board meeting. I had reached out to the person for the US who is the contact person for Dasana, and she emailed me once, and I haven't heard anything more, which is fine. I think so many people are so used to somebody saying hey, we're going to do this, and then nothing else happens. And that's not going to happen this time. I can assure people that we are here to stay. Our board members, we have invested our time as well as our own money into this association, so we want it to be a success. We want people to be confident in the material that they're getting, and that we're not going to just kind of peter out into nothing. We have had some people that are really would like to see some a milk star program like what the goats have, which again is more, I guess there could be commercial goat dairies out there too that would maybe use the star program. I don't know, because like I said, I don't come from a goat background at all. But that is something that we're looking into to hopefully have that as an option to offer to people down the road. But right now, our biggest purpose and goal is to record lineage and have a database there for people, so that way they can make whatever decisions they want. Hopefully, if they're in the industry and they're selling breeding stock, hopefully them being registered with us would give a little more weight and be another marketing point for them. I know in the horse world, people always make the comment, oh, well, you can't ride papers. No, you can't ride papers. But the nice thing about papers are, if I find an individual that I really like and I know what their pedigree is, I'm going to look for another individual that has a similar pedigree. And, that doesn't always work out in your favor. Sometimes you get one that is drastically different, but usually different lines they'll create a name for themselves of being like, oh, they have a really bold temperament, or this one's really milky, good moms. Nope, plan on having bottle lambs, um, so being able to help assist that, I think, is going to be a big benefit for people who have been in the dairy sheep world for a long time. And then for people who are just starting out, because there's a lot of people that are just starting out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think anything to get more people dealing with dairy sheep is, I see no bad side of it at all.
No, the more people that I can educate about dairy sheep and let them know that it's a legit thing and it's been around forever. It's just not as common in the US for whatever reason. It's like a relatively new concept in the US. People are usually pretty intrigued by it, especially when they're like, you milk what? And I'm like, oh, so a new person that I can tell them about dairy sheep, And most people at the end of the conversation, they're like, that's really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, I get a lot of that too. It's like, you milk what? Okay, now tell me about this.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so fun. And we, like I said, we love the milk. It's just, to me, it's a taste wise, I don't think it tastes any different than cow's milk, but it's definitely, it's creamier, definitely fuller. I love it in when I make like a latte or a frap, that kind of thing. It's delicious. But I mean, I feel like you can't go wrong, and everyone who has tried it has ended up loving it. My grandma, so I took some milk for Easter, and my grandma grew up on a dairy farm when she was a child. And she was like, yeah, I want to try it. But I think in the back of her head, she was mentally prepared to not like it. Because we also took leg of lamb, and she had never had that either. And she ended up loving that. And she was like, can I take some of that home with me? And we're like, absolutely, Grandma. So she tried the milk, and she's like, it tastes like milk. And we're like, yeah, what did you think it was going to taste like? Like it's not off-putting or anything like that. Like, it's delicious.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. Oh, I love that. Especially just the introducing it to more people. It just get the word out to anybody and everybody you can.
Yeah. Yes. My my mom in 2020 was diagnosed with stage 4 metastatic breast cancer. So because of that, she does not qualify for radiation or chemo or anything like that. So what she has done is she has made a radical change in her diet. And so she's really not consumed much dairy in 4 years. And so because of that, she said she doesn't, it's not the taste of milk that she doesn't like, it's the texture, because she drinks almond milk. But when she came up and she was helping us with maple syrup, because I don't have enough things to do in the springtime, we also do maple syrup here. Um, so she said, like, I would like to try that. And I was like, sure. So she poured some and she's like, I like that. She's like, so to her, the texture is different than what cow's milk is. And I would assume probably if you haven't drank milk in as many years as she has it probably would have a different texture. But I love milk. There's nothing better than an ice cold glass of milk, and I will drink milk just to drink a glass of milk, like people will drink pop or water. And so because of that, I
Yep,
don't know if that's
same,
why I
same.
am not a milk snob. But I will say I am partial to our milk. I think our milk is superb. But besides that, I love milk.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm the same. It's like if I hot day, give me a cold glass of milk. I don't want the water. I don't want the soda. I want
Yeah. Yep. It's so cool and refreshing. And it on a hot day, it is nice because I typically don't want to eat a whole lot, especially like, so we don't
yeah.
do our own hay, we buy hay. And historically, we've always done a lot of square bales. And when are you doing hay? When it's the hottest time of the year and you're in the sun. And so during those times, like, I'm not really interested in eating. I am not a huge water drinker to begin with, so I always struggle with dehydration. So I'm like, give me a glass of sheep milk because it's higher in fat, higher in protein. So
Yeah.
I'm getting some calories and also hydrating myself.
Yep.
And to me, that has been the best thing for doing hot, not pleasant work and keeping myself going with some calories.
Yeah. So is there anything else you want to tell us about yourself, your sheep, your farm?
Um, so like I had mentioned before, we are located in Michigan, specifically the lower peninsula, the northern part of the lower peninsula. How about that? We're about 30 minutes east of Traverse City, Michigan. And we have a mixed flock. We have a very diversified flock. Um, because as I have gotten into this world, I've also been able to start finding some dairy ewes, and I snatch them up as quickly as I can. So we have some Dorset ewes. We have high percentage East Frisian Lacoon. Um, I actually have a ram that's East Frisian in Warbles, which I'm like super geeked about him and seeing his progeny. So he will have lambs. Hopefully, I'll have some lambs this fall from him, but for sure this coming spring. So the Zwarbles is in like a neighboring valley of where the East Frisians are from. So they're from the Netherlands, and they're known for being very milky as well as meat, and they have pretty decent wool. So I'm very excited to see what he adds for genetics to our flock. And then I also have a East Friesian Shetland ewe that is a first time freshener, and she actually just lambed last week. And she's not as big as an East Friesian because of the Shetland side of her. But because of that,
Mhm.
she is very manageable for someone who doesn't want to manage bigger frame sheep. And I'm really excited to see what milk production she produces, because for as small as a sheep as she is, she has a pretty decent udder. So we have very diversified genetics here, and as I go along, I do find more. I'm going to Indiana in a couple of weeks to pick up a dairy ewe, and I'll be getting another dairy ram from a gal there too. So pretty diversified. I would say because of that, there's really no one particular breed that's I'm like working towards, but what little work I have done, the East Frisian so far has stolen my heart. Um, I have not had a problem with them being delicate or intestinal parasites being a problem or anything like that. So, and maybe that's because they have some other things in there. So there's a diversified dairy. But I have an East Frisian ewe that her name is Stella, and she is my all-time favorite. She probably will be here forever. She'll probably never get sold just because she runs to me and greets me, and she's so sad that she's not on the stanchion being milked. So because of that, make sure I give her extra scratches. But yeah, we're ever expanding, and we think dairy sheep is the funnest and the coolest, and we think everybody should try it. So, and if they don't want to try sheep, they could at least try the milk. Like, find somebody, try it. You won't regret it, I promise.
Absolutely. So where can people find you if they want to look you up online?
Yeah, so if people want to look me up specifically online, on Facebook,
Or your farm.
Yeah, so myself specifically, I am Liv Fox on Facebook. Our farm page is Crafty Fox Acres. It's all spelt normal. And then on Instagram, not super active on Instagram, but we are there. Every once in a while I'm like, oh yeah, I should post something on there. We're also Crafty Fox Acres on Instagram as well. And then for the North America Dairy Sheep Association, we are a Facebook group, and we are under North America Dairy Sheep Association. And then in parentheses, it's NADSA. So you just request to join. There are a couple of questions that you have to answer in order to join, just because we're trying to filter out any people that post spam or scams, that kind of thing. But they're pretty quick and painless questions to ask. And if you want to join, but you're not milking sheep yet, you totally can. Just put in there, not milking sheep, here to learn, and we will 100% allow you to join the party.
Okay, perfect. Okay, well, I do appreciate you joining us today and telling us all about your farm, your sheep, your association, and I have learned more than I thought I would, and I'm excited to go and look up all of your stuff.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm glad we were able to find a time that finally works for the both of us. So, but it's been fun, and I think everybody should enjoy it and at least know about it, because it's pretty cool. And there's a fair amount of us out there in the world that, just have a few head of sheep. You don't have to have 30 plus or hundreds of sheep. If you want to, awesome. And please be my friend, because I can talk dairy sheep all day, every day. But
same.
I hope you guys enjoyed this talk I had with Olivia. It was so much fun. We probably could have talked for at least another hour easily. As always, I appreciate you all being here, and thank you for your support. I would be ever so grateful if you would leave a review or share this podcast with your dairy sheep loving friends. Anything to get the word out. As always, you can find me on Instagram at Diary of a Sheep Dairy Farmer, and if you want to follow the chaos around the farm, you can find me on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok at Hidden Hollow Sheep Dairy. If there are any topics you are interested in, or if you are interested in being a guest on the podcast, please let me know. Thanks for being here, guys. We'll talk to you again next week.